Welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Bruen, and we are here this week with the one and only Dylan Kage. Dylan, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, man, I appreciate you. Glad to be here.
Pleasure to have you here. Absolutely. Take a little deep dive into your career and, kind of revisit a lot of your accomplishments. So looking forward to this.
Awesome.
So rewinding a little bit to the very beginning, actually, growing up as a kid, when did you first become a fan of pro wrestling, and who were some of your favorites growing up?
So, literally from a kid, man, I remember being 4 or 5 years old. I grew up around the Charlotte area, so Mid Atlantic was always hot. Dusty, the Horseman. My very first wrestling memory is really watching the Horseman dismantle Dusty when they followed him out of the convenience store and all this. Just amazing stuff. So I was always a fan. My family watched it. My grandmother was one of those that every time there was a kick out on the show, she would come out of her chair. So always on, always on.
Nice. And when did you kind of make that transition and say, this is something that I want to do myself and give it a shot?
So with me, I actually came up through martial arts. I took Korean style Taekwondo as a kid. Came up through the ISKA ranks. In 96, 97, I was first in state North Carolina in martial arts through the ISK rankings. They're still the national organization for martial arts today. And that type of karate. But done that, I was ranked. Was thinking about going into nationals and doing some big things there. I went to a tournament and they had a deal. I was 17 years old and all the adults ended up dropping out of this super fight at the end of the show. So we were sitting there and I had a guy come up and he was like, listen, the guy that actually is supposed to fight, he's the former world champion. He lost the title 2 years ago. Nobody wants to fight this guy. Do you want to step up? I'm like, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. We get in and once they say fight, this guy hit me about 17 times before I even moved, before I could flinch. Went through this whole thing. I got my butt kicked terribly. I swear it was like I owed the guy money. But from there, I realized I probably need to get into something else. But no, I was just a lifelong wrestling fan. Came in straight out of martial arts. I did martial arts as a kid, really, to get into wrestling. I wasn't really a team sports guy. Playing football, baseball, anything like that wasn't really my deal. Individual sports is where I thrived. And professional wrestling just something I always wanted to do. I found out that Wahoo McDaniel had a school out in Charlotte. He had just actually sold it to NWA Mid Atlantic. I think that was in 98. I started training in 99. Wahoo was coming in and guys like Colt Steele and Gary Royal, Leilani Kai. I trained with these guys literally every day for 2 years, going up to the shows, taking down the ring, handing out posters, flyers. I would come into the town 2 or 3 days early. I did whatever I could do to get into the wrestling business. Back in those days, there weren't really a lot of schools. Not a lot of people actually knew how to get into the business at that time. So, you really had to work your way in.
And what were your interactions with Chief Wahoo McDaniel like? What was he like?
He was incredible. Any story that you probably heard about Wahoo is true. I've heard most of them firsthand from him, from playing golf on a bet with golf professionals, because the one thing I say this about Wahoo, and I say it with endearment now, even though it might not sound this way. When I first met him, I was a young punk kid coming out of martial arts, state champion, thought I was this, that, and the other. I cut a promo on him one night, and I kept calling him an old man, this, that, and the other. He gets in the ring. He shoots a single leg. I placed third in state in wrestling in high school, and I could not defend the takedown. There was nothing I could do to stop this man. He had to probably be, 65 at the time. I'm 19 years old. He took me down. He gives me a shoot, step over toe hold, cracked my ankle, told me, "Welcome to the business, kid." From that point, he loved me because I came back. I think I took 4 weeks off, rested, came back. When I went in, I had long hair, looked like a rock star. I shaved it all off, military style. He knew I was serious. From that point on, he was actually great. Um, but he was just an incredible guy. Literally, any story that you ever heard about him is probably true,
That's awesome. One of the true greats in pro wrestling, without a doubt.
without a doubt.
Yeah. So you would go on to ACW, Assault Championship Wrestling. You became heavyweight champion there. You were tag team champion with the Rocket Fred Curry Jr.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about some of your memories teaming with Fred Curry Jr. and your time for ACW there?
Yeah, definitely want to give a shout out to the Currys. I know Flying Fred's going through some stuff right now. So, hey, Flying Fred, here's looking at you, baby. I love you. Now, as far as that punk kid Rocket, let's talk about him. So I moved up to Connecticut really for let me back up just a little bit to say this too, because I want to give this man his props. Independent wrestling back then wasn't like it is today. The guy that I truly believe was like one of the architects for what independent wrestling is today is Tony Rumble. When I was a tape trader as a kid, I knew all the New England guys from Ron Zombie to the Mercenary to Slam Dog to Tony Rumble to Jason Rumble, the 2K Club with Jason Rumble, Slick Wagner Brown, and Luis Ortiz. Those three guys are the main reason I actually moved to Connecticut from North Carolina. I thought Luis Ortiz, to this day, I still believe that he is New England's greatest product. Just an incredible guy. A person I consider my brother, my family. But I watched these guys, tape traded watching these guys probably for a year while I was training. I had to be there. And I knew everything there was to know about Tony Rumble and everything that he had going on in that New England area. So I had to be there. I ended up meeting up with the guy, my manager originally, Jason Wood, who was friends with Jason Knight. Jason owned ACW. He was the promoter. He had just left ECW. And I was a big ECW fan as a kid. So I figured that could definitely be my in somehow, some way, as far as having a name on your back.
Sure.
Moved up to ACW. And I was kind of like the star protege there at the school for a little while, going through Jason's camp, letting him polish me and finishing me out. And the Rocket came in. Me and Fred, we probably had a rivalry. If I saw him in the store today, me and he would probably still square up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love him and I hate him at the same time, Curry. I hope you're listening to this. I want you to know I still hate you with guts every day. But he's a guy who actually really pushed me when starting out. Having his dad behind him, having the big push behind him, he was a guy that was going to move up quick. I wanted to be right on his coattail, but not on his coattail. I want to be beside him and eventually be in front of him. And that's what I strove to be. And I'll say this about Jason and Luis Ortiz and Slick Wagner Brown, all these guys you can kind of put in that same group. This was the best of the best of the best during that time, maybe of all time. Slick's still friggin' amazing today, 2025, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm sure if you put Luis Ortiz in the ring right now, there's not a step. There's nothing that the guy couldn't do. He was amazing. Yeah. But having that group of talent around you, man, was just you either swam or you sank. And I was lucky to swim. We were able to take the ACW stuff, and me and Luis Ortiz, we actually got booked in Japan through Wally Yamaguchi, Sean Yamaguchi. We did 3 tours for them. Coming in, I actually used a Pepsi Boy deal. I came in with the Pepsi Boy gimmick. It was a gimmick that was already established in Japan that they gave to me. I had it for a couple of years. Me and Louis were tag partners over there. We had the Japan NWA tag titles at the time, I think in 2001, 2002. So really just had a good time with these guys. Me and Louis, we literally traveled all around the world. I told Louis one time we've wrestled in Japan, Puerto Rico, and all over New England. I've wrestled the guy literally 100 times.
Yeah. And what was that like arriving in Japan for the very first time? What was that experience like?
from a little farm kid from North Carolina, it was culture shock. I mean, literally culture shock. Uh, Everything. And, the internet wasn't what it is today either. So even going over there, it was, I was blind, right? From the flight itself, which I couldn't figure out how the airplane was going to stay in the air for 14 or 15 hours, freaking out about that. And then looking down the row here, and I got Wild Bill Irwin over here. I got Barry Darso on the tour. I got all these guys, Vic Grimes, this guy, that guy. And then getting over to Japan, you don't know what you're doing, how you're going to do it. And you figure it out quick.
Yeah. And then, of course, you would make another stop at WSW, World Stars of Wrestling. You were the heavyweight champion. You were the television champion. Memories from that promotion?
Yeah, I think that was Knuckles Nelson's out of Salisbury Beach, Mass. Knuckles had a school up in that area, was running really good TV at the time, and really was a great trainer. Knuckles was another guy, another journeyman that had really been all over. These kind of the guys I always looked up to. To be honest with you, Joe, I never thought of myself of being Hulk Hogan, right? But I knew, well, when I first came in, I actually got taken under wing by the Italian Stallion. Do you remember him, old WCW
Absolutely.
job guy?
Yeah.
So I was with the Italian Stallion. I tell everybody my first 2 years in the business, I had over 300 matches. The Italian Stallion booked me 4 times a week from Georgia. It was in Georgia, West Virginia, Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, every week, 4 days a week. Didn't make a dime, but I ate a lot of hot dogs and bologna, and really just had a good time, man. But I always had those guys in my ear about wrestling being an actual job. These guys actually done it, and they did it week in and week out for 20, 30 years. So whether it was Leilani Kai or it was the Italian Stallion, I always had that mindset of, trying to get that job. And like I said, I never thought it'd be Hulk Hogan. I believe it or not, man, I didn't even start watching WWE TV until I was like 10 or 11 years old. I couldn't figure it out. It made no sense to me whatsoever watching Mid Atlantic all the time. It's a funny story. I was telling this to my friend of mine the other day. The first time I ever saw Hulk Hogan, very country, right? We very deep South. So with everybody's accent, I thought they kept calling him Hulk Hogan, and I couldn't figure out why this guy was trying to rip off the Road Warriors. Like, what the flip's wrong with this guy? So
Yeah.
I never really got Hulk Hogan. But coming up with Stallion and these guys, man, I always had that backing of some of the best journeymen around.
Yeah. And of course, you'd go on to WWPW, tag team champions with Latin Fury Luis Ortiz, which you touched on. You guys have traveled everywhere.
Yeah.
Kind of give us some stories about Luis Ortiz and yourself as a team specifically. Any memories?
Yeah. Me and Louis, we thought along the same ways of what was heat, how to get heat, how to put together a match. I think because we came up the same way and we thought the same way about wrestling. We've had a couple different incarnations with different team names, whether it was Primal Impact or La Familia or overseas with the Pepsi Boy and the Virgin Coke. The great thing about me and Louis is that we had great chemistry literally from day one. So it didn't matter if we were working against each other or with each other. We kind of knew where we wanted to go. And I'll tell you now, working with Louis I can't put him over enough, Joe. I truly believe Louis is amazing. But to tell you how close we are, he's a Puerto Rican with a Native American wife with 6 kids. I'm a Native American with a Puerto Rican wife with 6 kids.
Wow. Oh, man.
So I love this guy. He is my brother from day one, day out. I probably haven't talked to him in 2 years, but he knows he can always count on me for any day.
And one of those guys you probably just pick up right where you left off, right?
Yeah, I mean, I got Louis drunk for the first time. Hopefully, I can say that on the show. In
Yeah.
Japan, he was never a drinker. I got him trashed, and I was always the guy that wanted to hit the town no matter what the time was. I'm an insomniac, so I don't sleep anyway. So no matter what time we would come in, 10, 11 at night, we would come out of the arenas. I'll never forget, we actually main evented in Corrigan Hall. When we came back, I was like, oh, man, we're hitting the town. It was Louis' first time ever really drinking. And we went out on the town and had a really good time. I had a blast. Let's just say that.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. You would go on from there to the MWA, Midwest Wrestling Alliance, once again becoming tag team champions there. Any specific memories from that promotion?
Um, we were traveling so much during that time. I mean, me and Louis during that time frame, literally, we probably had 100 matches, if not more,
Wow.
in a 2 to 3 year span. Because I mean, even in Japan on our tours, we were over there for 21 to 29 days of tour. We were going down to Puerto Rico for 2 weeks at a time, and I was working with Louis every night. I mean, I think we did something like 21 days straight in Japan, just me and him.
Wow.
So some of the stuff kind of blends together, but I mean, we've been all over and beat each other half to death and beat most of our parents half to death as well.
And with 3 full tours in Japan, you must have had so many experiences, but what would you say was your number one takeaway from your time in Japan?
Mm. As far as the takeaway, I don't know. But I do know that the experience was really humbling. As somebody like me, Japan was always the thing that I wanted to get into. That's where I wanted to be full time. That's the kind of stuff that I liked as a kid. So being over there, especially with my best friend, my brother, um, really, man, it was incredible. You know what I mean? To experience everything and to be able to travel the world, and like when we were over there, we got to wrestle guys like Tajiri and a few other guys that guys that I grew up watching. Incredible, incredible.
And of course, the MWF, you were a big part of the MWF, becoming world heavyweight champion there, managed by Percy Pringle III for a while there, Paul Bearer. What are your memories specifically with Paul, working with him and, having him as your corner man, for all that time there, and also remembering the late Dan Marotti, memories of Dan as well.
Yeah, the MWF was my home. I carried that belt for a little over 3 years. Had Percy right by my side almost from the beginning. It's kind of crazy when Percy first came in. It was actually supposed to be Jimmy Hart. He couldn't make the show when Percy came in last minute, and me and him just clicked. Percy was from Alabama. I'm from North Carolina. We both like country music. He was a big George Jones fan. So was I. We drank the same, so we clicked from the beginning. Uh, Percy was a great guy too. He loved to drive and that kind of thing. So literally, he's driving the car. We're blasting country music, hitting the road. The third person in that car, not only we can talk about Dan Marotti too, but please let's make sure we throw the legend himself in there. A lot of times it was Percy Pringle, Dylan Cage, and the Iron Sheik in that car.
Oh
Now,
man.
you want to talk about fun? Holy shit.
Any specific memories that you can share of the Iron Sheik?
Oh, yeah. And I tell everybody, since his passing, I'll listen to different people tell stories, and a lot of the stories are the same about the Sheik. A couple of things. I love going into restaurants with him and just watching him trying to pay for food with pictures was some of the greatest entertainment possible. He always had his Halliburton. He had all of his pictures and had all of his stuff in it. And no matter what would happen, no matter how much we drank, ate, put on the table, no, he always tried to pay with his pictures. So that was always an ordeal, no matter where you went to. And it would be funny. I remember going through the airport one time, and you hear the beep 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 of the guys riding the little carts, and it was the Sheik, and there was somebody in front of him, and they're beeping, they're beeping, they're beeping, and finally he jumps up and says, "Hey, don't you hear the mother beeping?" So he was high strung all the time. But I tell everybody, everything that everyone saw, that was him. Kaz was a great guy. Me, him, and Percy had a lot of fun. Jesus Christ, we closed more bars in time with more cars. I mean, really, these guys were my mentors. I mean, truly and honestly, um, they really taught me about the wrestling business in general and what needs to happen and what we can do to be better. And they were just great guys. They truly were.
And did those 8x10s ever work? Was he able to get some free meals along the way?
You would be surprised at how often it would work. You
Wow.
would be surprised. One of my favorite members of the Sheik, we were at hopefully I can tell this story. Me, some of the boys, me, Abyss, Boogeyman, I think Loki, who, if you know B, he never comes out. Hey, he's not that guy. But Loki actually came out. We were having some fun one night, and we were in the room. There were some moms there of some of the wrestlers, and she was a fan when she was a kid, so she seen the Iron Sheik and really started fangirling out. Well, all of a sudden, we're in the room, and all you hear is hoof, hoof, hoof. We come around the corner. Now, Sheik by this time has had double knee replacement. I think he's having some real issues on his feet, can barely really get around. At 2 a.m. in front of the fangirl, he's sitting there and he's working out. He opens it. Anytime the guy would work out, he would always have it as cold as he could possibly get it. In New England, it's always cold, especially when I was seeing him. So he had his door open, nothing but chilly air coming in, and he just sitting there working out, going through all the motions. And then, of course, once he got done, he took out his pictures, and I think he was trying to sell one to Abyss.
That's great. Now, magazines obviously were a big part of both of our childhood. Wrestling magazines were a big deal back then, and it was a different time. You were in, of course, the PWI 500 in 2012. You were number 321. What was that like when you first saw, your name in the list?
Hey, being a fan, man, you can't put prices on feelings like that and moments like that. I mean, we all know what it is, but to see your name up in a magazine that you grew up subscribing to and watching and can't wait for it to come out and see it on the newsstands and stuff like that, it's probably hard for young kids nowadays to really think about magazines and whatnot. But to be in the PWI 500 was a huge, huge honor. I'd just come off my little run there in TNA. I had done some stuff there for about 3 years and worked with everybody from working with Delirious there at Ring of Honor to Brian James and Ron Killings and Conan and just all these different guys that I worked with over the time. Jerry Lynn, really had a lot of fun. And so, you see stuff like that, and it's a great accomplishment, and it's an honor more than anything else, I think, when you really think back on it.
Another one of your stops, NEW, Northeast Wrestling. You would lock it up with Hale Collins. What was it like working with Hale Collins?
I actually liked Hale. The Now, I think, is still around, still doing big things. They are tremendous guys. I always got along well with them. Again, journeyman guys who have been around. I mean, I can remember these guys back to the early 2000s. I mean, they've been around for a long time, bring a lot to the business, always have. Working with them was easy. If I'm not mistaken, one of us was really late. I think we went about 25 minutes, nothing called in the back, just having a good time. And actually had a really, really good time. I like working for Michael Bryan up there for NEW. They use Kurt Adonis and Ron Zombie, who good friends of mine. Even though Zombie, we do realize you've never beat anybody in your life. Let's just go and get that out of the way. And Kurt, what's in your pants, friend? But anyway, great guys. They still are there helping Mike, and Mike has a great, great company. He's been around promoting, I think, since the 90s, maybe. If not, it has to be like 99, 2000. So he's been around, done that. I've helped them on occasion, whether it be in the ring or outside the ring. I like doing a lot of promoting and branding and stuff like that. So I've always tried to help those guys any way I can.
And personal experiences with Slick Wagner Brown over the years. Anything you can share?
Slick's another one. I consider him and Louis and probably maybe John Walters the three best that New England ever produced. It didn't matter. You can pick a year, you can pick a month, you can pick a day, a time. Those guys were always amazing. And Slick, I'll say this, I don't really think he gets his due either. During that time frame, me and Slick used to work with girls, and we really showcased them. And I'll be honest, it wasn't as much on my end as it was on Slick's. He really knew how to showcase and get that out there. And from there, I truly believe like women's wrestling really took off with two of those females and the next group and that next generation that came in through Slick and myself, whether we were training girls through the schools over at Jason's, myself, or, I know Slick was over at Kowalski's, but we were always pushing that. But I don't think he ever gets his due when it comes to that kind of thing. As a worker, he was phenomenal. I bet he still is today. Don't doubt it. Don't discredit it. He was incredible. I think he has a school in Connecticut now, Test of Strength Wrestling. Let's throw a shout out for that. And I guarantee you that he is still awesome, still amazing. And I bet his talent that he's got will probably be like the next generation of guys coming up that are going to do big things.
Again, like you said, one of the greats here in the New England scene, and New England has
Absolutely.
produced so many different talents, and so many of them have gone on to great success. So when it comes to New England wrestling as a whole, I think it's really done a lot for the scene. Tony
Absolutely.
DeVito and Justin Credible would team up to take on yourself and Ron Zombie. What was it like working with those guys?
Another so much fun. So I was a big ECW fan. Like that was my jam as a kid. So when I actually got to meet PJ, Just Incredible, and Tony, it was awesome. They were good friends with Jason, so they used to come into the school pretty regularly and beat me up. So I was kind of prepared for when we actually had those matches. Tony, I thought was always an underrated worker. I mean, God, the guy was phenomenal and can do anything. Um, truly, I've had a dozen or so matches with him, and I mean, you can't see through anything with Tony. PJ, when his head on is on right, I thought was one of the best in the business. His matches with like Jerry Lynn back in ECW and stuff like that. I mean, the guy just produced and produced and produced. Again, when his head's on right, could have been one of the best.
And with all the advice that you've taken in from all different sources over the years, what would you say your number one piece of advice that you received over the years would be?
Hmm, that's a great question. Um, I don't know if I could pinpoint it to one thing. Well, actually, I probably can. That's to shut your mouth and open your ears, especially if you're new in the business, and watch who you're listening to too. Um, any good advice can come from anyone, but bad advice can come from anyone too. So you just have to watch what you're listening to. There's so much information out there right now. I was involved with a training school down in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, for about 5 or 6 years. We had Wheeler, Utah, actually come out of there from AEW. So we're trying to pass on that knowledge and keep that cycle rolling for that next generation of guys coming through. My brother AC Collins had a C4W Academy. They were running 50, 52, 53 shows a year down in Myrtle Beach as a tourist attraction and doing really, really well. But Wheeler and a couple other guys came through there. James Drake was coming through there at one point, a few other guys, but Wheeler is one of our hometown kids.
Nice. In Defiant Pro Wrestling, you would go one on one with Jay Lethal, another one of the greats. What was your experience like working with Jay?
Same thing with Jay. I know he came up through his school, and I knew the guys that he was trained by. They put us together almost immediately because we had that same style. Me and him always got along. He's been down here to North Carolina. We battled, Jesus Christ, up and down the East Coast. I think we were talking the other day. Something like 8 or 9 states that we worked in. So known Jay for a long time. An incredibly talented guy. Anybody that's seen him in the ring, you couldn't say anything other than that. But a great guy outside of it as well. And obviously, he's a master of imitations.
And obviously, you were inducted into the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame years back. What was that experience like, number one? And you also took on Chris Venom, a fellow New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer for MXW.
Yeah. MXW, I think, was headed up by Joel Gardner. So again, having that ECW, me and Joel were friends. Anytime I could work with those guys was incredible. Chris was an awesome guy. He was good friends with Curry. I'll try not to hold that against him, but anybody that comes in with Curry's got to be bad news. Let's be honest.
Right.
As far as the Hall of Fame, my friend, that was an incredible honor. Um, I always tell everybody the Hall of Fames and stuff like that are a pro wrestler's gold watch, right? It's that badge of honor. It's that's something that tells us that, hey, you did a good job for the time you were here. So being in there and being in a group that I was inducted in, I mean, on the name side, you're talking about the JJ Dillons and the Bulldogs and that kind of thing. And on the other end, I got some of my best friends in the world, whether it be Slick Wagner Brown or Luis Ortiz or Ron Zombie or Kurt Adonis or Slam Dog or Mercenary, Knuckles, all these guys that I was able to travel the roads with for so long. And I tell everyone, when I first started out, really, we didn't go to shows. You went on a run. You were typically on a run for 3 to 4 days. So every week, I mean, I travel with these guys on the road, in the car, listening to stories and having the knowledge passed, the way it should be. Um, that invaluable.
Yeah.
It's you can't put a price on it. Uh, it was one of the greatest days of my life.
And what are some of your favorite venues over the years to wrestle at?
Cork and Hall, number one. The ECW arena would probably be number two. I got to work with XPW when they came in after ECW closed. And we did a series of shows with them when they first got to the arena. So I had a lot of fun with that. I actually worked with Nick Gage's brother, Justice Payne.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with him,
Yeah.
but me and him had a little run where we were working together for about 2 years, just about everywhere from Delaware to Pennsylvania to Massachusetts. But those are probably my two favorite. I was always a guy that I wanted to hit wanted to go to Dallas and hit up the Sportatorium and that kind of thing, the old school venues. You know what I mean? So I got
Yeah.
I got to do a lot of that in the Mid Atlantic area, like the Greensboro Coliseum and smaller venues like that. And then, like I said, the ECW was big time, and then Cork and Hall. Uh, they had I don't even know if it's still there, but I remember when you used to go in there, if you had someone that was going to be going on another tour, say in 2 or 3 weeks, there was a wall there and you would just write a note to them. It was like old school texting. So I can remember just going back there and writing notes to Louis and to different guys that I knew was going to be on tour, and just amazing, incredible memories.
And you mentioned a lot of these guys you're traveling with so often on these road trips. And, any stories that you could tell us that stick out over the years? Any road stories or just funny stories in general?
Um, let's see. There was always something going on, especially back in those days. You had a van load or a car load of 4 to 6 guys, so you're always playing ribs on people. Um, you're always trying to save money. I remember when we first started coming up. Me and my best friend AC Collins, he kind of looked like Raven, so we would actually pull into the McDonald's or Burger King right before they were going to close. And then I would always pitch him that he was in the back seat and they would kind of look in and he would have the WCW replica belts and this kind of thing. And we were working to get free food. I think more than anything, not any particular story, but just the experiences were just amazing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're up and down with some of your best friends and just living life, just cutting up and messing around. I remember one time when we heard that guys used to hit each other on the road, and as a young guy, you can't wait to do what everybody else is doing. So I couldn't wait to get into a rental car and get some insurance on it and beat the hell out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and being on the road with some crazy ass people like the Mercenary and uh, getting into some crazy shit. You know, I have to watch my stories because I have to be careful about who's married and stuff now.
Exactly.
But had a lot of fun. I was always not necessarily a party guy, but I always like to be the life of the party. So I was always about bringing some girls in and some drinks and having some fun and getting as crazy as we can get. And I love rock stars from the 80s, like, the real scumbag ones that would tear up the hotel room. So uh, I was always trying to get to be about that as much as I could. But I had some good people make sure to hold me back so I didn't get too crazy.
That's good. Kept you grounded a little bit at least, right?
Just a little bit.
Now, when it comes to Mount Rushmore, there's different ways you can look at it, but chiming in
Okay.
your inner fan, what would you say is your professional wrestling Mount Rushmore?
Okay. So if it's just me, no stipulations on it. There's only four there ever could be: Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Eddie Guerrero, Terry Funk.
Awesome. Very nice.
Yeah.
Now, the
Now,
flip
if there's
side
a
of
number
that.
five, it's Dynamite Kid.
Okay. Very underrated, I feel, Dynamite Kid.
I do too.
Yeah. Now, the flip side of that, what would you say is your Mount Rushmore of New England wrestlers?
Oh,
Any
wow. Okay. I would do, I would definitely do Slick. I would definitely do Louis Ortiz. I might He was a big staple in New England for a long time. So I would have to put Handsome Johnny in there, Ivar from WWE, because he did so much for a lot. And my fourth, even though he never beat anybody in the wrestling business, he is my brother. I'll put Ron Zombie in there. He's a Connecticut icon. Literally, if you ever walk the streets with that man, he can't walk 10 feet. He's a literal rock star in Connecticut. So got to throw him in there.
Now, all the matches that you've had, if you had to narrow it down to top 3, in your opinion, what would your favorite 3 matches be?
I actually already have them. So my first one is Jerry Lynn for, I think it was called 3PW, if I'm not mistaken, out of Philly. We ended up doing about 32 minutes one night. That was incredible. The 90, it couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 weeks later, we were booked together in TNA. So I pick up Chi Cruz. I start in Connecticut. I pick up Chi Cruz in Philadelphia, and then we drive to Nashville, Tennessee. This was before MapQuest and all that kind of stuff was really into play, and Google Maps. So Chi was my map guy. He mapped it out and told me that we were going to be there in 11 hours. I think it ended up being 14 hours. So we were rushing to get there. We spent 5 minutes in the hotel, got to TNA. We get there. I get with Jerry. He says that we're working that night. I'm like, oh, man, phenomenal. What are we doing? He's like, oh, man, we got 14 minutes. We're going to go on first. So we have all this stuff planned out. We're getting this stuff together. We're like super psyched, right? As soon as we lock up, the referee comes to me and says, take it home. Okay. And literally on the fly, watching him being able to flip that and cut it and edit that match to where we needed to go was one of my favorite moments in wrestling, because I couldn't believe that could be done so seamlessly. That match is on YouTube. I see it every once in a while. It's like maybe 2 minutes and 10 seconds or something like that got cut from 12, all on Jerry Lynn. Phenomenal. It was actually an incredible squash. My third, actually, if I can throw 2 more on there, I got 2. I got to work with Eddie Edwards when he was Ring of Honor champ, and we did 28 minutes of nonstop action. Didn't call anything in the back. Eddie was somebody I knew since he was in training school. So he was just like, call it. And I was like, oh, yes. But we had a great time. We had a lot of fun. My fourth one actually includes Slick. Slick was supposed to be in and working Jay Lethal in a cage match for Dan Marotti. And Slick got caught up on Route 1 or Highway 1, whatever it is, up in Massachusetts. He ended up getting stuck. Couldn't make the show. On the fly, me and Lethal ended up doing about a 17-minute cage match. Completely on the fly. No build up, no nothing. Didn't even speak. But probably one of my finest performances of all time against some incredible talent.
And another ECW alumni that you shared a ring with, Mikey Whipwreck. Your memories of Mikey?
I love John. Mikey is one of my favorite people. He was actually one of the first people to really teach me to have fun in the ring. I was always so serious and really trying to focus and get my stuff together. And he really took me and he was like, we're going to have fun. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And he was a guy that no matter what would happen, I actually enjoyed, once that 1, 2, 3 hit, I actually enjoyed everything after that, because we would stay in the ring for another 10 and 15 minutes and literally have some of the most fun I ever had in wrestling, just playing around and having a great time and being a fan.
Yeah. Now, aside from Japan, of course, did you have a favorite promotion or promoter to work for over the years?
Yeah. Dan Marotti was probably my favorite. And I've had some really good promoters, from AC Collins down in Myrtle Beach, NWA Mid-Atlantic with Slim and Strawberry Fields out in Charlotte, to Jason Knight and Mike Milano up in Connecticut, to Knuckles Nelson's in Massachusetts, to the Currys in Delaware. Really all great promoters, but I have to say Dan was my absolute favorite. Dan, I think, is another guy who really doesn't get the due that he deserves. Way before anybody ever really kind of got onto that kick. Him, maybe Mike O'Brien, what's his name, John Arezzi.
John Arezzi, yeah.
John, yeah, those type of shows were, most people didn't have that kind of thing back in the day. Dan tried to get that and put that on. He just didn't have I'm not sure what just didn't click with everything there. I always felt like he should have been bigger or better, almost like big time wrestling does now. I feel like Dan could have been doing that in the early 2000s, just something wasn't clicking then.
Yeah.
But Dan was probably my absolute favorite. Really great guy, a good friend of mine. Going back to him not getting his due, I think he helped resurrect so many guys' careers, and he helped a lot of guys' careers like myself, like Ivar from WWE, Tommaso. God, the list goes on and on, from Louis and Slick to everybody else in between. But great guy.
And do you keep up with the current product at all on TV?
Absolutely. Yeah, man. I've been a fan since I was 4 years old. Me and my kids, I got 6 kids, so we watch it religiously still.
So WWF, they had a relationship in the the early 90s with Smoky Mountain Wrestling, with the USWA. And then after that, we didn't really see relationships with WWF and other promotions other than ECW, of course. But now, you have the buyout of AAA, and of course the relationship with TNA. What are your
Correct.
thoughts on kind of getting involved with other promotions again?
I think it's healthy. I mean, if you really kind of, if you know the history of the business, it's really just like the old NWA system. It's not NWA, it's WWE. Whether it's WWE Mexico or WWE Europe or WWE TNA or whatever that case may be, it's that they've literally created territories again, which I think is a great thing. As long as it doesn't become cookie cutter. I think the great thing about the territories is they all had their individual styles, and I think that's why wrestling in the '80s was so incredible. Because you had guys like, the Hearts and the Calgary brand. You had guys from Mid Atlantic. You had guys from Portland. You had guys from New England. Whatever that case may be. But everybody had their own, the different styles. So there was no cookie cutter. Everybody was different. And the guys that actually went around, those territory guys that went around and went to these different places, were able to pick up these different things. And I mean, their work was incredible. I think that's kind of what's happening now. You see it now with God, what's my guy? He's the current US champ over from Europe, hard hitting, does the H bomb for a finish.
Drawing a blank.
Champion. Dragunov. Gosh, I can't think
of yeah, Eli Dragunov. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
But you see guys like him, and you got even guys like Austin Theory, I've kept up with over the years, watching these kids grow, and like Wheeler, Utah, he was all over the place too. I had him all over the Indies before he got picked up. So, it's a great thing having different places where guys can go and work and not be overexposed, and they're learning things at the same time.
And obviously right now we're going through the John Cena retirement tour.
Mhm.
Once that's all said and done, who do you see, if anybody, in the promotion now as that next John Cena? Who will be that next big star?
I mean, I know they have Cody right now. I don't know who. That takes some balls to be in that position. Let's start there. I was real good friends with John's dad, Mr. Cena, Johnny Fabulous himself, and I used to talk to him about just John's schedule and his travel and things of that nature. And I'll be honest with you, I would not want that position to save my life. But it takes a special human, a special person to be able to kind of to be in that spot, because you're giving up everything for a certain amount of time to be able to handle all those commitments. Yeah. So I don't know who it could be. They have a lot of great people. Roman Reigns is incredible. Seth Rollins is incredible. We could keep going down the line, right? I mean, they're the top of the top of the top. I remember working with CM Punk back in the early 2000s. So, I mean, they got some incredible people there, incredible personalities. It really depends on which guy's going to really step up and take it. I believe in grabbing that brass ring.
And what was Punk like to work with in that stage of his career?
Easy. We were working with Steve Carino during that time frame. I want to say Masato Tanaka was coming in for a big tour, so we were like just going around the loop during that time frame, and going over. My last tour of Japan was for Wrestle One. So, I mean, I was Punk was a great guy. Everybody thinks he's kind of standoffish, but I'm a kind of standoffish guy as well. So I think we kind of clicked in that aspect.
Any memories of the great Mercedes Martinez?
Yes. When Jason opened up his school, I was his junior trainer. Mercedes Martinez, I will say this. Yes, she's a pioneer. Yes, she's amazing. Yes, she's great. But I'll explain this so people can really understand how amazing she is. She came into our school, and in 2 weeks had her first match. She was a person that no matter what, I was training really hard. I was going to Japan and Puerto Rico during that time frame, really hitting the indies hard. As an indie guy during that time frame, I was trying to do 21, 22, 23 shows a month, just wherever and wherever I could, whatever I could. So I was doing everything I could to kind of get this stuff done. Mercedes would be on those same shows. We would get on the same shows. We would travel. We would get on the train going into New York, whatever the case may be. She was also the only person that when we brought in Mr. Fuji and Bob Backlund as guest trainers, Bob Backlund came in and he whipped the holy hell out of us with the workout. Mercedes Martinez, out of probably 20 guys, and I'm talking seasoned guys, rookie guys, whatever, 20 guys, one female. Mercedes and myself were the only two standing at the end, which is actually what started a really cool relationship with us and Mr. Backlund. She did the exact same thing when Mr. Fuji came in. He had a training school in Tennessee at the time, and he was really promoting it, and him and Jason were friends. He came in and done the same thing really for about 3 hours, was kicking our ass for about a week. And Mercedes was the only person that would stay there. And what she didn't know, she made up in heart, which is, I'm sure, what she still does today. She has tremendous heart. She's an incredible person. She, as much due as she gets, she still probably doesn't get everything that she deserves for everything she's done for women's wrestling and for herself in general. She's a legend, a legend.
And Jason Knight, obviously, you played a big part in your career, especially with the training aspect of it. What was it like working Jason in a steel cage?
Um, Jason was, man, I feel like I'm beating everything with a stick here, but I loved working with Jason. Jason had done, I think he told me 22 tours of Japan. So even though he had the sexiest man on earth persona, he was a very intense individual. Jason was a Serbian, like special forces. So he was a badass and would let you know both in and out of the ring. Training with him was incredible. He was a very good trainer, came up with some really amazing guys. He used to bring in so many guys to his school, like Kid Cash and Chris Hamrick, Balls Mahoney, Bob Backlund, Mr. Fuji. These are all just guest trainers in the first year that he was open. So, I mean, he was an incredible trainer. But now being in the ring with him, you would think that he never knew who you were or how good of friends you were, as hard as he would hit you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And two others that
But great.
they complement your style of wrestling, and you got to work with them. The Amazing Red, Quiet Storm. What are
Oh,
your
yeah.
personal memories of them?
I like both those guys. Me and Storm were just texting back and forth just a few months ago. I didn't realize he was still out in Japan doing his thing. He was the man. I only got to work with Storm a couple times, maybe 4 or 5 times. With Red, we worked probably 10 or 15 times, all over New England. I really enjoyed him and his cousins, the SATs.
Yep.
Now, I'll say this: my 5th favorite match of all time is myself, Chris Hamrick, and I can't remember who the third guy was, versus Red in the SATs. It was somewhere in BFE, Pennsylvania. It was snowing. 12 people showed up to this show because I counted them when I was out there. So we went out there and had the most fun I've ever had in my entire life. We went out, this is probably terrible to say, but we went out and we hit every WWE finisher we could think of for 15 minutes.
Right.
And we were literally just laughing and having a good time in the ring. But I think it translated well, and the 12 people had a really good time that night.
Yeah. That's great. And that's, it doesn't matter the size of the crowd, as long as you're giving it your all, it's that's all that matters.
That's right.
Yeah. So, when it comes to legacy, let's talk about what you want your legacy to be. Yeah, how do you want to be remembered in the wrestling business?
I think I was a hard worker who gave everything he had, no matter where he was at. I was lucky that I've been to 30 states. I've been to England, Puerto Rico, and Japan. So I got to travel the world at a very high level. I got to be in the ring with people that I grew up watching, and people that respected me and respected my ability, my talent, and really actually became really good friends with on top of it too. So, I mean, they say sometimes you shouldn't ever meet your heroes, but it's far and few in between for me. Most of my heroes are actually pretty cool people.
And how can fans follow you? Are you on social media or website, of course?
I do a little social media, mainly on Facebook. I just got on X here recently. I'm a country guy with 6 kids, so my time is limited. I'm not the social media technology guru that most of these guys are, but you can hit me up on Facebook anytime. That's Dylan Kage. That's where most people get me. That's where I get my bookings and stuff from still today. I'm still down here in North Carolina. Still got some dates open, so hook me up.
And as far as the fans go, what can they expect from you moving forward? What's next for Dylan Kage?
Well, I can tell you this. Here's what's coming up. So one of my mentors was a guy named Kid Cash. December 27th in New Jersey. Jason Knight has been relaunching ACW, and I will be there. Kid Cash has the ACW heavyweight title. It's something I never lost, so I'm coming to get it back. 20 years in the making. The last time I saw Kid Cash was in North Carolina in 2018. He retired. I put his ass down 1, 2, 3, and December 27th, after I go into the ACW Hall of Fame, I'm going to put his ass down again and reclaim what's always been mine, that ACW heavyweight title.
Awesome. We look forward to that for sure, and encourage the fans to certainly check out that event. And thank you so much for joining us, Dylan. It's been my pleasure to have you here on the podcast today.
Hey, man, I had a great time. Anytime.
Awesome, man. So for Dylan Kage, I'm Joseph Bruen, and this has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.
And make some noise.